Zillow for sponsoring this video.
The house forever linked to the Amityville horror phenomenon. Many people have said that the Soden residence is haunted. The Watcher House haunted mystery is still just a mystery.
So Zillow, if you don't already know, is the leading real estate and rental marketplace dedicated to empowering you with data, inspiration, and knowledge all around the place that you call home. I myself personally use Zillow a lot when buying and selling my own home, especially when it came to financial resources that helped me learn more about mortgages and property tax, you know, all the things most of us know nothing about when we first start, but are super important to know. But beyond renting, buying, and selling your home in real life, I recently discovered that Zillow is also an amazing resource for inspiration when it comes to house builds in The Sims. Especially because many of Zillow's listings include floor plans, 3D tours, and the save and share buttons for sharing listings with others for inspiration and easy reference back to. So click my link in the description below to check out Zillow and start finding super cool homes. Plus, there's also a Zillow app if you need an easy way to access the site on the go. Okay, so now on to how I'm going to be using Zillow for today's Sims video. So while exploring the website for some Sims house inspiration, I came across a couple different blog posts on Zillow about haunted houses for sale. As in like real life haunted houses with a real history of paranormal activity. And seeing as how you guys seem to love creepy things as much as me, I thought it would be fun to explore some of these real life haunted house Zillow listings and then see if we can find builds in The Sims to explore of those actual houses. So the first real life haunted house that I found on both Zillow and The Sims is actually from one of my personal favorite spooky house stories that's been called The Watcher House. So I did find this house on the gallery. I mean, it looks pretty close to the listing. Let's see what the inside looks like. And while we're checking it out, I will tell you spooky stories about what makes this house so spooky in real life.
In June 2014, Maria and Derek were getting ready to move into their dream home with their 3 children. It was right next to Maria's childhood home. It had a spacious layout, and it was located in the 30th safest city in the US. However, 3 days after completing the sale, a letter arrived in their mailbox, addressed to the new owner. In thick, clunky letters, the typed letter read, "Dearest new neighbor, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. How did you end up here? Did this house call to you with its force within? This house has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched this house in the 1920s, and my father watched it in the 1960s. It is now my time. You have children. I have seen them. So far, I think there are 3 that I have counted. Was your old house too small for the growing family, or was it greed to bring me your children? Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me." The author then signed as The Watcher in a cursive font. After receiving the letter, the family reached out to the previous owners of the house. The previous owners told them that they had only received 1 letter from The Watcher in the 23 years that they had lived there. But since it had happened mere days before they moved out of the house, the letter was discarded without much concern. The 2 families went to the police and disclosed the happenings. 2 weeks later, a second letter arrived. The letter included information like their surname, the children's birth order, and the children's nicknames. It also referenced seeing their daughter painting in an undisclosed porch space, asking, is she the artist in the family? After a year of investigating, there were still no leads. This, of course, put stress on the family. 6 months after the arrival of the letters, Maria and Derek decided to sell the house, but could not due to the rumors that had started. They also attempted to sue the previous owners for not disclosing the threatening letter they received. However, the case was thrown out. But luckily in 2019, the family's nightmare was over and they were finally able to sell their home. To this day, the Watcher has not been found, even though the police and FBI were both involved. Many believe it may have been a hoax created by Derek and Maria, insinuating that they bought a house they ended up not being able to afford and needed a legitimate reason for selling so quickly. There's even been a movie made recently about the situation. But to this day, the Watcher House haunted mystery is still just a mystery.
Okay, this next haunted listing is referred to as the John Soden house. And seriously, talk about like a dream house that may be haunted. Here is the house listing on the Sims gallery. And I mean, already I can tell they did a pretty good job. Look how epic this looks.
John Soden wanted a house that would be a showplace where he could entertain his friends in the Hollywood film community, but only lived in the house for a few years, perhaps due to the negative criticism of its architectural style at the time. The house was sold in 1930 and again in 1936, 1944, and 1945. From 1945 through 1950, the house was owned by Dr. George Howdell, a Los Angeles physician who was a prime suspect in the infamous Black Dahlia murder, although he was not publicly named as such at the time. The doctor's own son, Steve Howdell, himself a retired City of Los Angeles homicide detective, argued in his 2003 book that the Black Dahlia victim, Elizabeth Short, was actually killed by his father in the basement of the Soden house in January of 1947. Howdell also claims that his father may have committed more murders in the house and buried victims in the basement or yard before fleeing the country in 1950. Despite claims that cadaver dogs have indicated the presence of human remains on the property, no excavations have been made as of October 2015. Because of this, many people have said that the Soden residence is haunted by the victims of Dr. George Howdell, whose bodies still remain on the property.
Okay, and I saved the most popular listing for last, especially because it has the least amount of information. The Amityville House. There is a description from the last time they tried to sell it, which was sold in 2017. But it says, legendary Amityville house, pristine, charming, 3-story, waterfront Dutch colonial. But yeah, weirdest listing I've ever seen. But of course, I found the house on the Sims gallery. However, I'm sure this is renovated to look like the movie version one, which I believe it looks different now in real life, but I want to see it anyway.
30 miles outside of New York City stands the house forever linked to the Amityville horror phenomenon. On November 13th, 1974, the estate was the scene of a terrible murder. 13 months later, the Lutz family purchased the home at a drastically reduced price, but only lasted 28 days before leaving it. Their spine-tingling tales of paranormal activity is what propelled the legend of the Amityville horror and spawned many books, documentaries, and films. Some of the paranormal activity that the Lutz family says they experienced was that Lutz was said to wake up at exactly 3:15 a.m. every morning, which was around the time that the murders were carried out. The Lutz family claimed to smell strange odors, see green slime oozing out of the walls and keyholes, and experience cold spots in certain areas of the house. When a priest came to bless the house, he allegedly heard a voice scream, "Get out!" He told the Lutzes to never sleep in that particular room in the house. Other activity included a nearby garage door opening and closing, a pig-like creature with red eyes said to have stared down George and his son Daniel from the window, George waking up to his wife Kathy levitating off of their bed, as well as their sons. After telling their story and moving out of their house, George and Kathy took a lie detector test to prove their innocence. They passed. The couple, however, was bogged down in legal and financial issues, which prompted skeptics to believe that they had a motive to creating this fantasy horror story in order to sell to the public. The Lutz's former lawyer, who fell out with them over money issues, even came out in 1979 claiming the three of them came up with the horror story over many bottles of wine. However, son Daniel still claims that the house ruined his life and that he continues to have nightmares to this day. And the murderer Ron, who first lived in the house, who's still alive while serving 6 25-year life sentences, claimed he heard voices urging him to kill his family, but he has since changed his story multiple times. The Amityville house finally sold in February of 2017 to an undisclosed owner. It has been previously owned by 4 other families since the hauntings have taken place, one of which had the address changed in order to try and stop people from visiting their house due to the fame surrounding its past history.
Did I give you enough real-life spooks? Good. If I did, make sure to leave a like before you go. Also, another huge thank you to Zillow for sponsoring today's video. Guys, make sure to check them out using my link in the description below, whether you're looking to buy or rent a home, or just need some Sims house building inspiration. And if you're looking for more spooky things to watch, why not check out these other videos? They're pretty spooky. You know what else is pretty spooky? Not being subscribed to me. So the subscribe button is right over there. Just click it. Just click it and you'll be saved from the spooks. And as always, I will see you guys soon.